Welcome to Love Liaisons, the ultimate deep dive into the highs and lows and hilarities of modern relationships. I am Kathryn.
And I'm Marina, and we'll be your love liaisons. So pour yourself a nice glass of wine.
Or a hot cup of tea, and let's dive in. So today we have the pleasure of having Tina here, and she is the founder of the Badass Arts and creator of the Badass Method. It's a neuroscience-informed framework that helps women shift from performance-based identity to embodied self-leadership. She has a degree in psychobiology from UCLA and years of experience in executive leadership. Her focus really is on midlife, reinvention, relationship sovereignty, emotional power dynamics, and the subtle patterns that keep high-capacity women overfunctioning in love and leadership. She's married and has 2 children. So welcome, Tina.
Thank you for having me. Really excited to speak with both of you today.
Kathryn, first, let me ask you, what are you drinking today for this occasion?
Well, since we're talking about badass arts, I am drinking a wood dragon tea. It's an ancient red tea. It's a powerful, malty, and energizing red tea from old growth trees, suitable for bold and visionary ideas. So I thought that would be perfect. What about
Love
you,
it.
Marina? What do you have there, Marina?
Since the theme today, I think, is really about reinventing yourself. So my favorite wine that has this symbol of freshness, optimism, or celebrating yourself, for me, my go-to is always a nice Pinot Noir here. So I'm drinking this wonderful Pinot Noir that I found from Sonoma County. And I really love the way that this Pinot Noir, it offers like a bright, fresh, light, cheerful, and comforting taste for me. And I think that's really what, Tina's going to share this optimism with us. So Tina, my dear, what are you drinking?
Well, I love trying new things, and Trader Joe's just came out with a cherry cola prebiotic soda. So I decided to go with the bright red cherry cola prebiotic soda. And it is like it's all these good things in it, very low calorie. I'm super excited. And it actually tastes good. So that's what I got for right now.
Wonderful. I'll have to give it a try.
Yes. So Tina, tell us a little bit more about your journey in dating, in getting you to this point, and just so for listeners to get to know a little bit more about how you started this whole badass method movement.
Oh, thank you. That's a really good question, and it's a broad question. How far back do you want me to go? I have always been interested in mindfulness, in spirituality, and in science. And those 3 things sometimes seem very different from one another, but they also have a lot of overlap, which is the area that I like to hibernate in or focus in. And as you both know, I have been married before. And my relationship history was really colored by a very chaotic, traumatic childhood. And so I grew up with a concept of what love was that was frightening and unreliable. And, when you have we moved around a lot. My mother was not a stable influence in my life. So when I became an adult, I didn't have any models of what love would look like or what relationship should be, or a healthy relationship for that matter. And I analyzed myself or my way through life, especially in the early years. I used my intellect to kind of figure things out. That was my area that I could fall back on, which is why I studied science in college. And that's why I studied psychobiology. I wanted to understand the biological component for like psychological or neurological disorders. But that really only carried me so far, because you cannot intellect yourself through life if there's a disconnect between the head and the heart. That you're going to run into problems. You're going to continue to repeat patterns that aren't suited. So I was after my second marriage, when it fell apart, I realized I've got to figure this out. So I went on an exploratory journey, if you will, and discovered many different modalities that I studied. Dr. Diana Kirshner was one that I've worked with and studied. Positive Intelligence with Shirzad Hameen, the HeartMath Institute, amongst others. And so what I came to realize was that as important as our brain is to how we function, if our heart's not on board, we don't believe it, we just think it, but we don't believe it, we're just going to continue to repeat patterns. So that's when I went on a deeper dive, if you will, to better understand why I was reacting to certain things the way I was. Why was I either maybe reacting in a controlling manner, or I was hyper vigilant, or I was trying to people please, or I was avoiding conflict. And these were all because of patterns I had experienced as a child, which we developed our patterns early on as a way to cope with whatever we're dealing with. But when you become an adult, some of those patterns are no longer adaptive. And so as the adult Tina went on this deep dive, and I remember very early on after my second divorce, talking to a friend, and I wanted to start dating, and it was really too early for me to start dating. It'd only been a few months, and he said, "You can't date right now." And I was a little indignant. And his reaction was, "You're a hot mess. Anybody you attract's going to be a hot mess. Do you really want a hot mess?" I was like, "No, I don't." So that actually put a pause on dating for the first year or so right after my second divorce. And when I entered the dating pool, I entered it with a different mindset than I had prior. But it wasn't until 2 years ago that I actually met my husband. So I was single for 8 years, long time before I met him. I did a lot. I should also add that I did train with Dr. Diana Kirshner, and she is the best-selling author of a book called Love in 90 Days. She's somewhat retired now, but she's written many books, and trained with her to become a dating coach. So many years ago, I was actually a dating coach. So that informed how I approach things. But I had to bring in a mindfulness piece. I had to really, you mentioned midlife reinvention. That was all part of the journey. 2 years ago, when I met my now husband, and he had seen some of what I'd read, some of what I'd written, anonymously, mind you, a lot of this stuff I had just kept to myself. He said, "You've got something here. You need to share this. You can't keep this to yourself." And when we moved to Texas last year, that's when I quit my corporate gig, because I'd always been in sales and marketing. And he said, "Now that we're here, you need to build it out." So that is where we came. That kind of brings you to where the Badass Arts now, the company that I'm building out, sharing more of my journey, the techniques that I either learned or adapted from things that I had learned to then help other women.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I've even learned a little bit more about you right now. And I come to find out, I think we both attended UCLA and I studied psychology, but you're absolutely right, because it is such a academy-focused research institution that it breeds learning things more cognitively rather than necessarily going deeper and somatically into your body. And so now, you're talking about this journey. For many people, divorce comes with a completely identity shakeup, and rebuilding and rebranding yourself after that chapter ends is a challenge. And you've shared a little bit of that journey with us. I'm curious, was there a moment in time when you realized, I'm really becoming a new version of myself that I like?
Not a particular moment, but micro moments where I was able to respond differently to a situation with either greater clarity, more confidence, more kindness, more humility, where I wasn't just a reactive bundle of nerves anymore, but I actually could be more mindful. And that's not to say that I don't get heated. I'm half Italian. I get heated really quickly. So I think it was just a series, but now I can look back and say, oh my gosh, I went through the fire. I went through some traumas that could have, as I like to say, buckled my knees and heaved my lungs. But I'm actually here in this really beautiful, centered time in my life, married to somebody that is the love of my life. My only regret, I get a little misty-eyed when I think about this, that I didn't meet him 20 years sooner.
Mhm.
I do want to address those. You said something about more somatic. I have several favorite authors and people that I read their books or listen to their podcasts and interviews. And from one of them, Greg Braden, he's just a fascinating man. I don't know if you've heard of Greg Braden, but He was the first to introduce me to the concept that comes out of the HeartMath Institute, which is in Northern California, Stanford. And they've been around for decades, maybe 20, 30 years. They were the first to discover that there are actually neurons in the heart. I think they call them neurocytes. And I've heard anywhere from 200 to 300,000. So it's not an insignificant number of nerves in our heart. And the fascinating thing for me, so here's that science geeky side coming out, is that the heart sends more messages to the brain than vice versa. And that's when I realized that if I was to engage in any kind of mindfulness practices and I approach them as performative, as I did my 5 minutes meditation, check that off, but I didn't feel them in my heart. I didn't believe the mantras. I didn't believe the experience. It wasn't touching here. Then it wasn't going to affect anything in my brain. It was certainly not going to change my life. And that was information that I learned from the HeartMath Institute and studying their modalities, listening to their books, reading their blogs. I even have their device, and they teach something called Coherence. And it's really rooted in energy. The idea that everything around us has a frequency or vibration. This sounds woo, but it's very much rooted in science. The earth has the Schumann resonance. Our heart has a certain frequency it operates on. The brain does too. I mean, we have things called EKGs, right? Everything is frequency, energy. Tesla, Einstein, they've taught us this. We know this for a fact. If we can engage in behaviors and choices and activities that harmonize our frequency, and that's one of the things the HeartMath has taught me, we're just better off for it. We handle stress more effectively. We get back to center more quickly. It doesn't mean we don't lose our shit and get upset at times. It just means that we can regroup more quickly. So I wanted to address that because when I think about somatics, as woo-woo as it sounds, it's not for me just because I'm going to wear some white flowy gown and give myself some goddessy name. That's not my approach to it. It's very much rooted in hitting the heart first, or settling in the heart first. I think that sounds better, more kind. I like to say like bio rewiring, from the heart outwards. That was kind of a long answer, but I wanted to share that with you guys.
Thank you so much. And take us back a bit, because I really want to transition and have the listeners understand fully what it would look like. I think it's a 6-week session at this point in time, what you take them through this badass method. But let's go back a little bit, and then we're going to get there. So as far as your dating is concerned, when you were dating and you went on 100 dates, however many it was, what were like the patterns that you saw? What were some of the things that you experienced that got you to the point to really be open for, your husband's name is Giovanni, and we'll be introducing him a little bit later, and got you to that point with all of your experiences? Because you talked about the internal, right? The head, the heart, all of that. So tell us a little bit more about your journey.
Okay. So as I mentioned, I was trained by Dr. Diana Kirshner to be a coach for her. So I applied a lot what I learned working for her to my own dating life. For example, reading the bio, not just looking at somebody's photos, recognizing that not everybody takes a great photo. And so sometimes you have to read what they're like. Do they meet the basics is an important piece for me. And it was hard for me to let this go because I'm a tall woman, for example. I'm 5'7". I always wanted to date someone who was tall. Women want to date someone who's taller, right? When I was a coach, this is a lot of what I say. I wanted to be 6 feet tall, full head of hair, and he has to have a college degree, and he has to make $100,000 a year. And I'm like, okay. So here's the dealio, ladies. Those men are few and far between. Would you date someone without a college degree? Oh, no. He has to be a lawyer or a doctor. Oh, okay, fine. Would you date a trade? No, I won't date anybody. What about a geeky guy? No. I'm not going to date an engineer. We limit ourselves with these checkboxes of who we want. So the first thing I did was I removed checkboxes as quickly as I could. Now, some I held on to and I resisted more than others. One that I held on to is I wanted to be with somebody who was Jewish. Now, I'm a Jewish woman, and I was like, you know what? It doesn't really matter to me if they're Jewish or not. It matters to me if they have a relationship with God and if they respect my faith journey and I can respect their faith journey. So there was a pivot there. That was something that I had to let go of. I did go on over 100 dates over the course of 8 years, and it was a sporadic kind of thing. It would be go onto a dating app, whether it was Facebook dating or, Bumble or Hinge. I tried them all. And then you'd go on one for a month or two, you'd meet some people, you'd match up, and you'd just go, okay, no. And then you would retreat like a crab, go back into hide in your little hole. And that's really what it was. So over the course of 8 years, I did go on a lot of dates. But when I met my to-be husband, his profile was very different than anybody I had seen before. He also lived further away. I was in San Diego at the time. He was in Temecula, Murrieta to be exact. And I had just broadened my distance. I think I went from, 10 miles out to like 50 miles out, because I was like, there was not a whole lot that I was finding, and we matched. And I tease him. He's heard me say this many times, but his photo looked like he knew where the dead bodies were buried.
Oh, wow.
He's got no, I'm not kidding. He's got a stern look. He's half Native American. He's got these deep set eyes, high cheekbones. And when he doesn't smile, he looks like, don't mess with me. But when he smiles, he lights up. So I looked at this picture and it was like kind of stern, and I went, ooh, but I had taught myself by this point, read the bio. And what he had written was so thoughtful, complete sentences with punctuation. And not something formulaic, not, I'm looking for someone to walk on the beach with me. No, there was a unique message in there. He talked about being a musician. He talked about being a widower. He talked about how much he loved his daughters. He's got 3 grown daughters. And when he reached out to me, it wasn't some, hey, babe, you got a beautiful photo. It was one sentence, we should talk. And I went, there was something so confident and simple enough, we should talk. Now, he'll tell you that's all he could think of saying. He said, I have no game. But I thought actually that was so badass of a statement. Now, I didn't reach out right away, because I was in that I'm going to get off dating apps mode.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But a few days later, I got another message which said, we really should talk. And I went, all right. The guy that looks like he knows where the dead bodies are buried, who has a beautiful profile, a beautiful bio about himself, I'm going to call him. And so I called him on February 18th, which was a Sunday. And we went on our first date on the 20th, which was a Tuesday. This goes back 2 years. And I'm going to have to back up and share a practice I did prior to this. It's one of the methods that I use. Okay. Because the second half of the story, which is really funny, you need to understand what I was doing. About 6 months prior, I started a practice that I call my I ams. I do it every morning. I ams, like in the Bible, I am that I am. I call my I ams. The moment I wake up, I do this every morning, sometimes quietly, sometimes I do it with my husband, but I will just immediately say a series of I ams that I believe. I call these badass affirmations, B's for believe and badass. I am alive. I'm enjoying the sun floating into the room. I'm here for a reason. Every statement, it'll be different every time, but every statement is 100% true. It's whatever is naturally in that moment, spontaneously coming through me. I am so filled with joy for this day, or I'm confident that God's got a path for me. Now, there's more to it than just I ams, because sometimes I'll say I create, I am guided by God. I know God loves me. I feel abundant today. Okay, so this is a morning practice I do. It's part of my badass method. 6 months prior to meeting him, I began very specifically saying in the morning, I am loved. And I would identify in my mind all the people that loved me. I wasn't attaching romantic love to it, right? I was just, I am loved. God loves me. My children love me. My friends love me. I just felt that love. I am lovable. That goes down to worth, because a lot of women will maybe not feel that they're worthy of it. So I'd be like, I'm lovable. And I just embrace that. And I am loving, meaning I also generate and share the love. So every morning, I am loved. I am loving. I am lovable. I did that for months before I met him. 3 months into our relationship, we're on the phone. And he says to me, I probably shouldn't say this. It's a little bit soon, but I need to let you know I am falling in love with you. And I'm silent. And the first thing I say to him is, oh, I guess I'm lovable. And he was like, totally thought I was blowing him off, but I was having an aha moment. I am lovable. Like, this man came into my life for a reason. He was put into my life. Our paths crossed. I'm a very strong believer in God. And that was such a profound moment. Now, he thought I was blowing him off, and I was just really experiencing the amazing manifestation experience I had just had. I called in this man into my life. I manifested
Mhm.
this, not by future tripping and saying, I want love, but I am love. I am loving. I am lovable. And then he came into my life. So that, I guess I'm kind of lovable is like one of our couple like jokes. Oh, I guess I'm kind of lovable, so it just part of the story of coming together.
I think it's a beautiful story. You talked about manifestation, loving yourself. What we think and feel about ourselves is what it's going to be, that growth mindset. So if we're telling ourselves, I am worthy, guess what? You're going to be worthy. If you say the opposite, and we're all human, we're allowed to have bad days, we're allowed to be sad. If not, we're not human. But waking up and being able to say, I am lovable, I am going to have a creative day, I'm going to let the sun welcome me in the morning, whatever it may be. That's the first start. I mean, we have a lot of things going on in the world today, which I won't get into, where we might start off our day not so great. So starting it off with a positive mindset, I think is wonderful. And it's probably where it got you to Giovanni being in your life. So it starts with us. And that's really anything in life, but you got to manifest it. And so we'll definitely delve more into what you do in those 6 weeks and the badass method. But I think that's amazing. And this is something that I've been doing lately because I've been out of a relationship for about a year now. We still have a great friendship. And it's really looking in the mirror and saying, you know what? I'm beautiful inside and out. I am this, but I'm also okay being alone. I'm okay with allowing someone to come into my life again. So it really starts with all of you. And that's why I always say, do you? But yes, I love that we have to manifest it. I love that whole idea.
And it's very specific as soon as you wake up too. And this goes to the science of it. And I mean, before you get out of bed, before you pee, anything, because when you wake up, your brain is in a different state. Your hormones your cortisol hasn't kicked in yet. You're more peaceful. Like you're right then and there. That is the prime time real estate for putting in the kinds of thoughts and owning the kinds of thoughts and generating the feelings from the heart that you want to cultivate, increase in your life. Waiting 5-10 minutes, you've already started to feel the stress of your day. It has to go with brain waves and hormones changing. So it's like literally sometimes before my eyes even open.
You're absolutely right. And there's even this famous method called the Silva method that talks about getting your brain into alpha, and that right when you wake up. And then you can actually teach yourself how to put your brain back into alpha through the day, through this early morning practice. But you're absolutely right that these kind of I am affirmations, they're not just empty statements. They actually build neuroplasticity. So what you hear, what you repeat, it can actually change the way your brain works. So yeah, going from I don't know if I'm lovable, I don't know, these I don't knows to I am, and blending it with a gratitude practice. Like for me personally, because of everything I've been through, folks know I survived a brain aneurysm rupture 5 years ago that really straight out kills 50% of people that experience it. So it's really quite a miracle that I'm alive without a whole lot of cognitive problems. So every time I wake up, I literally thank God I'm alive. And that's like, I'm alive, I'm well, I'm seeing the sunshine. And of course, we're in San Diego, we're always seeing the sunshine. So yeah, that is a blessing. And to really remember that.
Yes, I am familiar with the Silva method as well. I'm not as familiar as with others, but that definitely is part. I do want to say the reason I don't use the word affirmations and I use bad affirmations is not just marketing. It's because when I work with clients, I tell them that B stands for belief. A lot of mantras and affirmation work don't help a person because they are words that somebody else has created and they're saying it performatively or as a checklist. So when my clients and I work together, we craft constantly bad affirmations that come from their heart, that they fully believe. There cannot be a gap between what your heart says is true and what your brain says is your true. If your ego is stepping in and saying, yeah, no, that's just bullshit. It won't work. So when I was starting with this, I am loved, I'm loving, I'm lovable. In my mind's eye, I was also imagining the people that loved me, the people that I loved, the aspects of me that were lovable. And that goes for whatever, whether it's prosperity or health or whatever, dealing with loneliness. The challenge with many mindfulness practices, and Marina, I think you know this, is people put big goals ahead of them. And then they see that, it's so far out of my reach, it's not going to come true. But when you micro practice it, you start tiny, those baby steps build up. I tell my clients, imagine you have a puzzle on the table in front of you. It's 10,000 pieces. If you try to visualize that whole puzzle being complete, you're going to be like, I don't know what that's supposed to look like. But if you find the corners, and then you find a piece that matches the corner, you start to build that image. So that is one of the reasons why I'm very precise with my language, precise with timing. I want it to affect change. And so sometimes it has to be such a tiny step. You almost don't even feel the change until 5, 10, 20, 50 tiny steps finally create that, wow, I got somewhere.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure I'm hearing what you're saying, because this is really going to be a new notion for probably millions of people, because we're always being told, follow your brain, don't follow your heart, because you can't fall in love, because then you fall, then you can fall out of love. You want to have real love. Correct me if I'm wrong. I want to make sure I heard what you said about the heart and the brain being as one. So if your brain is saying, okay, this person is amazing, but it's missing this, I don't know, but your heart is just overflowing, I've always been that way. Like, I may see someone and you get the butterflies, and I'm thinking, but is this practical? That's my mind. I'm like a Libra. I'm like, is this practical? Because those butterflies could go away. Is this person going to have a stable job? So I want the listeners to understand. So you're saying, like, you need to connect the heart and brain.
You absolutely do. And here's something your listeners might not like to hear, but love is not the thing that sustains a relationship. It's not love. And I'll tell you, I learned that the hard way multiple times. If you do not respect that person and you do not trust that person, when you face difficult times together, love will not be the glue that holds you together. Trust and respect are the foundations. And I know that that bothers people because they want to fall in love and they want those butterfly feelings, but there's a difference between chemistry and desire. And if you're going based on chemistry and you're going based on the butterflies and you just have that, oh, I want that feeling, you are addicted to a chemical rush. That is not going to sustain a relationship. Love grows when the foundations of trust and respect are nurtured at all times. And that's one of the things I do teach it's actually an 8-week course. The first week is an introduction. Then there's 6 weeks of body. And then the last week is like, let's wrap this up, ask any questions and stuff like that. And there's opportunity to work longer. I have some clients I've worked with for a couple of years, but the Love Like a Badass, which is not a dating program, I call it a love cultivating program. It's 8 weeks. And this is one of the things.
What you're saying really builds on the work of John Gottman, who's, notably the most famous couples researcher in the US, where he's created this sound relationship house model where the main pillars are trust. So you need to have some foundation, like in your relationship, and basically trust, respect are pillars that keep it together. Plus, I think that having safety is important. We've talked about attachment theory and how that relates to adult romantic relationships and fostering a feeling of safety. And that is related to trust too, knowing that not just are you attracted to your partner, do you still have a spark, do you still desire them physically, but that they will be there for you when you need them. And
Absolutely.
that could be in micro moments, like when you're just sharing something with them, like, hey, look, this happened to me at work. And they're like, okay, yeah, I'm busy. I'm watching the game. Don't bother me. That's like little micro moments of rifts in your safety that can happen and over time and corrode a relationship.
If you cultivate the respect and the trust, you come back to center. And those are the things that you water and nurture at all times in your relationship. Rifts will happen, disagreements will happen. Arguing is part of the human experience. But if you have that commitment to patch those holes and those pillars when they happen, the love, which is that ceiling, will stay intact. Love, the ceiling will crumble if the pillars aren't there to hold it up. And that is something a lot of women, especially I think in our generation, we were raised with the you can have it all. And a lot of women confuse chemistry with desire.
So that is so true. I want to circle back to something you said, though, Tina, about overcoming obstacles and conflict, because arguments, conflict, obstacles, 100% in a serious relationship are going to be a part of it, big time. And so anybody can be happy-go-lucky when everything's going right. Okay, we're going to take a trip here, doing this. But when the obstacles face us, what happens? So in this whole badass arts method movement, when somebody comes in and they're handling obstacles and conflict one way, when they leave this, what is one to expect on how they can better handle conflicts? Because it's a part of any relationship.
So there's a methodology that I'm trained in, and it's called the PQ movement, positive intelligence. It comes out of Stanford, Shirzad Hamid. He's written the book and several others, and actually you might be interested in it because he does train coaches. And he talks about the judge, the saboteurs, and the sage. And so this judge is like the master saboteur. It's the one that looks at things in it. It's judging the situation, the people, or yourselves. And then it has sort of subsets, like the hypervigilant one. That's mine. I grew up in a very chaotic childhood, so I'm always looking for the shoe to drop. Then you've got someone who's very controlling, or someone who's a stickler, restless. There's these different manifestations or aspects that the judge will show up as. The sage is that inner wisdom that we have, and it's the part of us that knows how to navigate through these challenges. And one of the core things is to develop the muscle to say, here's a challenge. What's the gift and opportunity in here? Developing an interceptor muscle that says, okay, this thing just happened. I'm upset. I'm angry. What's the gift and opportunity? That's one of the pieces. And it takes a long time to develop that. So I do provide people the framework, and I give them the opportunity to continue to work with me if they want to deep dive into that one, because that does not happen in a 6-week course. You do not rewrite your patterns in 6 weeks. You need at least 12 weeks, if not 15 weeks. It takes a lot of repetition. But the sage has certain abilities. It is curious. Ask questions. Can you take inspired action? Can you have empathy for the situation? Can you have empathy for yourself? Can you look at that other person and see the child in them that's behaving this way because of whatever fear or emotions coming in right now? Do I do it perfectly? Absolutely not. I am patterned and wired like I was from my own experiences, but this is something that I work on a daily basis. I have an app. I do the practices. And a lot of the practices revolve around tuning back into the body. Things as simple as touching your hands together. When you're focused just on touching your hands like this, you immediately feel it like disrupts your thoughts. So there are times my husband, when he first met me, he was like, she does this a lot. Like, am I plotting? No, I was just trying to just found myself listening to sounds outside. When you're stressed out and if you just pause in the middle of your day and you got all these things going on and just listen to the sounds, 10 seconds. Further away, sounds closer, sound of your breath. This helps strengthen the interceptor muscle. So these are things that I teach. I will reference the positive intelligence because I certainly want to give credit where credit's due. So in that 6 weeks, they get an introduction to this concept. If they want more meat, that would be more one-on-one. And I am going to be creating more programs down the line. Love Like a Badass was born because people asked me to do it. I wasn't seeking to focus on love with this program, but I had several people say, whatever you did to get the relationship you got, I want some of that. And I went, okay, I'll create it. So that's where that came. But certainly these are skills that are applicable across every vertical in your life.
Yeah, I could definitely relate to that. And I'm forgetting the exact Japanese term, but I think it's like ikigai, where your profession is now your calling. I definitely have a sense of that with the work I do now with teaching meditation and teaching at Naropa University, which is the first Buddhist-inspired and contemplative education university, where it's like what you're describing is this feeling that I've had that like you were called to do this. You didn't just say, okay, I'm going to create this program, or you weren't a relational researcher, that from your lived experience and from others seeing, you were pulled into doing this and you agreed. And it's like this perfect coincidence coming together of your love, your passion, your interest, and what the world needs.
I was going to say, listening to you, I mean, the first thing that I thought of is the word meditation. So a while ago, I had anxiety, maybe even some depression. And I might have said this on one of the episodes. The doctor said to me, oh, well, I can get you on anxiety medication. And I'm not a big pill person. I got the medication. It sat there. I never used it. And then I started meditating and everything went away. My blood pressure went down, no more anxiety, depression. Like I became one with myself. And so when I listen to what you're saying, that what it embodies is really meditation. And if more people could just take a moment, like I said earlier, there's a lot for us to be stressed out about going on in the world, in the United States, outside of the United States, and there's plus our own, lives in the household, and then you're adding on a relationship, all these things. And so that's what I'm really hearing you say is being able to meditate. Not everybody can do it. I know they do it at my work where we literally stop work for half an hour, and everybody that wants to can join like on a Zoom, and we just meditate for half an hour. If you don't want to join, you don't have to. You go about your day. But it's where we're at. And I think more work places are going to be offering this because people are on like high octane. High octane right now. They're very stressed out. And here we are talking about relationships. They're just trying to like make ends meet and, all of that. But you mentioned empathy, respect, trust. I'm hearing all these buzzwords. For someone that has been out of a relationship for a long time, maybe they had trauma, or maybe they've just been busy raising children, whatever the reason is, and now they're trying to get back. And you talk about patterns, right? So they have all this, the way things are supposed to be, and they're so used to being independent, sleeping by themselves for years. Now they're trying to like add this love, add this other person into their life in a unique way, meaning not kids, not their coworkers, actually someone to share their life, to travel, to have dinners with, to have meaningful conversations. How does someone in that situation, because I really feel in the next 10, 20 plus years, we are going to have more and more single people. What do people do that are single and not, we did an episode single on purpose, but actually at some point in time want to find love, but they've been living a certain way for so long? What would you recommend for these type of individuals briefly, like without giving it all away? Because I think this is where we're going. We're going to have more people that have been single for more and more years. And now they're like, now what do I do? How do I find somebody for myself?
Okay, that is a huge question, and you've identified several different situations. The empty nester, the boss babe who's done it all on their own. There is no one solution to any of those. There just isn't. The program I have right now is geared specifically to women who are divorced. They're high functioning. They've got their life together and they want to date again. Somebody who is so far removed from even that idea is going to need a different kind of support versus somebody whose children have just left them. And so now they have a big house to themselves. So as much as I'd love to give you a one-size-fits-all answer to that, sadly, I can't, because I will say we are wired for companionship. We have been taught otherwise. We've been taught we can do it on our own, but we can't as a species. Survival of the fittest is not what's going to lead us out of this challenge. Actually, Darwin taught us that collaboration and cooperation are very important. So I'm actually worried by the number of people who have checked out. And I'm worried about the number of men who've checked out. And I would even say that modern feminism today has driven a lot of men out of the relationship pool because they don't want to deal with all of the challenges, heartache, hardships that come with a hardened approach to dating and relationships. So you've asked a huge question. I've given you some controversial answers here. But you've also inspired me to think what would be the next program I would create for women who are not there yet, just want to heal their hearts. And I have to think about that.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about that. And even I'll use myself as an example. I'm pretty independent. I always have this attitude like, well, I don't need a man. I may want, but I don't need, like, I can pay my bills. I can take care of myself. I take care of myself when I'm sick. If I want a conversation, I can call up a gentleman friend. I can call up a female friend. I can call up my sister, Marina. So I'm blessed to have a lot of support in that sense, groups of that nature. But I'm also like, it would be nice to just find someone to add to my life. I have my life, he has his life, but we're adding to each other's life. I don't need to be joined at the hip. So I see what you're saying, that we are wired, if you go way back, Adam and Eve, and I'm not going to get religious. I'm not an overly religious person, but there's a reason that eventually people do want to find someone. This whole loneliness. We have an episode on loneliness that we're going to put out here soon. Loneliness in the community is on a high level. And it goes back to what you're saying.
I actually think, so we were taught, reframe that for myself the last few years. Example, looking outside, beautiful neighborhood, men paved those streets, men built those houses, men built the high rise, men dig the ditches, men dig the oil in the oil field. Like, women need men. And I don't mean that in a needy way. I mean, we need one another. But we were taught somehow that by needing them, that would lower our value. The bottom line is, my husband needs me too. He needs me for a variety of reasons that he can't satisfy himself. I bring him peace just by being female, by being feminine, by being a woman. When he goes out to his very stressful job and he comes home and I'm like in my joyful, happy state, more playful, that allows his inner child to come out and be like more playful. Women need men too. When I hear a young woman looking out in society and say, I don't need a man, I'm like, really? Who built that freeway that you're driving on? Who fixes the electricity when it goes down in a power outage? Like, we have denigrated and demonized the genders and men in particular and convinced ourselves that we don't need one another. And I would very much push against that. And I didn't always understand that. But I've come to say it's all right to say, I need my husband. I appreciate men. Our world needs men. Our world needs fathers. It needs brothers. It needs husbands showing up with the respect that they do. Do we need assholes? No, but do we need men? Absolutely. And there are a lot of real men out there. That's the other thing. A lot of times women have a real specific thing that they're looking for. Mine was someone who was tall. I'm the same height as my husband. I weigh more than him. I always feel like a girl around him. So I share that because sometimes the ideas that we think are good for us aren't necessarily the ones that we need. But we definitely need a world where men are showing up. And so I know that that annoys some people when I say that, but I'm at the point in my life where I really don't care. It's like, if you look around this world, it was built by men primarily in service to women. When I recognized that, I went, oh shit. Like, the house I live in, when the plumbing got messed up, it was a bunch of guys who fixed the plumbing and made sure I could have hot water again. Hallelujah.
Yeah, well, we're at a point, I think, in the world where we need all of us. I've heard many leaders say, we really need all of us. I mean, spiritual leaders say we need all of us present. I know men and women both work in different fields. I had San Diego Gas and Electric had to come out and do work on my street. There was a woman working with them. So yes. And, of course, I was born during the Soviet Union, where men and women both worked together in a proletariat revolution. But one thing that came to mind, and I know, Kathryn, you always love to sing a song, and I'm still waiting for it, but the song that came to mind, it's different than what you're going to sing, is Miley Cyrus's Flowers, that I can buy myself flowers write my name in the sand, that I can love me better. And I'm curious, Tina, like this, I can love me better. I definitely have had that feeling lately. I pay all my own bills. I'm head of my household. I'm a single parent. I pay my own bills. I take care of my son when he's with me. And I feel like I can take myself out on a better date than some of these guys can. And recently, one of my friends from high school, also divorced single mother, she made this post of, this is the life that I provide for myself. And she posted pictures of herself traveling to the Caribbean, traveling here, traveling there. And she said, why would I want to go out with a guy who can barely plan a decent date when this is the life that I provide for myself? I can love me better. What do you think of that when many women really can provide this great life for themselves?
I was there. I did it all. When you share it with somebody who wants to provide for you and build a life with you, it's so much easier. I mean, if there isn't somebody in your life that can show up like that, I understand. But if the partner that was for you was by your side, holding your hand when it got tough, covering the bills when the money was short, I think most women would say, I think most men would say, I'd much rather do this with somebody who I can count on, who I can trust, who I can respect, who trusts and respects me too. I did it. I raised my children. I raised my daughter on my own, 100%, no co-parenting, went from the age of 8 onward. It was exhausting. I went to school. I had the corporate gig. It was exhausting. I've taken myself on trips. It's funner to travel with other people. I've done the by myself trips to Europe, and I've done the trips with people that I like. So I'm not telling women, you got to live the life like I have. I just think we need to start being a little bit more honest that we do have desires that we put aside for the sake of the way modern society tells us to live. And I think humans need each other. Women are amazing. Women bring so much to the world, and so do men. I would love to see the battle of the sexes put behind us and be able to just respect each other and see what they bring to the table. And yeah, there are women who can do plumbing, but most of them don't. Just like there are so many things that women can do that men can't. I'm just no longer operating in that binary mode, and I had to do it because of the situation I was in. But I think at the end of the day, given a choice, would people choose to be alone, or would they choose to be with someone who loved them, nurtured them, cared for them, trusted them, and respected them? I know what the answer became for me. And so when I started saying, I am loved, I am loving, I am lovable, I was calling in someone who could fit that role, not in a settling way on what matters, but just saying, hey, all right, I'm ready. I've done it alone long enough. Did it alone a long time.
So I appreciate you saying that, Tina. And I think this is really pivotal because we get so jaded. Okay. We live in this negative energy. And it's a wonderful thing that you women, I mean, I pay my own bills, all this, but what we're hearing here today is really important message because yes, that doesn't mean you can't, that you're not confident, being confident in yourself, but maybe you had a bunch of bad relationships and that's what you've lived in. But that's not the way it has to be. Okay. There are people out there that are going to resonate with you, that you're going to be, you said an aha moment. So if you just live in this negative energy, then that's probably what you're going to get. So even though you've had this past where it didn't work out with men, not all men are this way. And that doesn't mean that you're meant to be alone. If you choose to be alone, that is your choice. And that is fine. That is a choice you're making. But what we are hearing today is that it's okay. You will find someone and it could be absolutely wonderful. So don't dismiss that. And this goes back to being confident, not only in yourself, but being confident in knowing that you can have this relationship. You can have it all. You don't have to do one or the other. And that doesn't mean being in a relationship that you're losing a part of who you are. And if that's what it is, that's probably not the right person for you to begin with. It once again, going back to adding to your life. So Marina, you were talking about singing, and yes, I'll sing a song. And since we're speaking about confident, I'm thinking of this Demi Lovato. I love her because she has her own story. I love her, and she has a song, Confident. I think it came out in 2015. So I'm just going to sing a couple lyrics here. And it says, "Are you ready? It's time for me to take it. I'm the boss right now. I'm not gonna fake it, not when you go down, 'cause this is my game and you better come to play. I used to hold my freak back, now I'm letting go. I make my own choice, yeah, I run this show. What's wrong with being confident? Yeah, yeah." So I think that really says it's all. You can be confident on your own, but you can also be confident with someone else. And it's a beautiful thing when you find that person, such as yourself, Tina, with Giovanni. And I would really love for Giovanni to come on and share what made him decide Tina is the woman for me, a little bit about himself and his journey. So if he would like to come on, we would love to welcome Giovanni and hear what he has to say.
Yeah, let's see him.
Are you ready to talk? They have questions for you.
Are you ready? Demi Lovato wants to know.
You know what? You can ask him to sing. He's a professional musician.
Get that guitar out.
Oh, it's in the closet. Okay, I'm going to hand him the headset.
Well, welcome.
Hi,
Giovanni.
thank you for having me. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you so much for being on our podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. So Tina told us a little bit about the story of how you all met. And I'm curious to know, what was it about Tina that really sparked your interest? Because she told us from her point of view, you heard, of course, how she saw you on a dating app. Your picture wasn't the greatest, but then your bio stood out, and then the way that you approached her, like, we've got to talk. She thought that was badass. So what was it about Tina that caught your eye and then later your heart?
Well, let me go back a little bit. I had been married for 31 years and lost my wife in a sudden freak accident.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
thank you. I pretty much had just kind of thought to myself, I've had my bite of the apple. I was married for 3 decades, had 3 beautiful grown daughters. And I thought, okay, I'm done. I'm good. I had no interest whatsoever in dating, in looking at anybody. And it was only at the urging, the very strong urging of 2 of my daughters, said, "Dad, you've got to do something. You've got more to give. You got to get yourself out there." And I said, "I don't want to date," because I hadn't dated. It had been 2 years since my wife had passed away. I had not been on one date, no interest at all. So they forced me into putting together a Facebook dating app. I had no idea what to do. I didn't even know how to upload this thing. No clue. As a matter of fact, the picture that I took, that Tina referenced, I took it in the bathroom of a moose lodge. Yeah, that was my bio picture.
Wow.
I had no interest. I thought, okay, I'm just going to put this thing up here. And I had been on just two dates, okay, before I met Tina. And they were disasters. And I just thought, you know what? I'm done. I'm just completely done. So as a last ditch effort, I'm flipping through the dating app. And I'm flipping through. And then all of a sudden, she pops up. There was something very different about her profile. Number one, was very clever. It's funny. She was clearly physically very beautiful, very attractive, but that wasn't what prompted me to want to talk to her. It's an energy. There was a vibe. There was something authentic that set her apart from everybody else. But I had no game whatsoever. I guess that's how the young kids say it. You got no game, right?
Oh, yeah. I have a teenage son. Yeah.
I know what to say. I really wanted to talk to her, but I didn't know what to do. So I just basically said the only thing that I could come up, and she didn't answer. A couple more days went by, and I thought, okay, I'm going to give it one more shot, then I'm going to shut down my app. Then I said, we really need to talk. And a couple of days after that, she called. And from that point on, that was it. We had been together ever since. But when we went on our first date, we had our first conversation on February 18th, 2024. We went on our first date 2 days later, February 20th. So we're rounding the corner of 2 years to our first date. When she turned the corner, the energy that I saw in the bio couldn't compare to what she brought when I met her. An authenticity, a softness, kindness, a smile that she had. I mean, there was nothing pretend. There was nothing. She was confident. She was lovely. And she was funny, unbelievably funny. But I think another thing that really attracted me to her was she was about her family. She was about her children. She was about the pride that she had in them and the upbringing and she had been through a couple of marriages. I was impressed that she did not bash her ex-husbands. He had nothing positive affirmations for them. And he just captured everything. And I mean, immediately I was smitten. And after being married for 31 years, something like that for me was at once scary, but also it was very clear this was the direction that I not only wanted to go, but I needed to go. And it was shortly thereafter, I think, oh my gosh, maybe 3 weeks, we're on the phone. We'd been on a few more dates. And I said to her, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but I think I'm falling in love with you. I've fallen in love with you. And she said the most interesting thing. He took a few moments of pause, and she said to me, well, I guess I'm kind of lovable. And that really told the story because she believed that she was worthy of being loved. She believed that she was ready and she had prepared herself and she had grown. And in the end, and this was something that was very different, and I didn't realize this, I knew that I wanted to be with her. I knew that she was my love. But for the first time in my life, she made me want to be a husband. That is very different. Wanting to be married, wanting to find a wife, wanting to find a partner. She made me want to be a husband. That is a uniquely different desire for a man. She made me want to lead, honor, respect, care for her. She brought that out in me. And through our time together, her allowing me and trusting me to lead, to be consistent with her, to show her that I loved her and wanted her to be my best friend, that allowed her to be her true feminine self. So what we bring to each other is this wonderful symbiotic relationship of the roles of me being a leader and the protector, bringing the peace and love and home to our lives. I could write a volume, but essentially that's kind of what it's been across.
I love hearing the way that you said that. And
Well-
it's interesting because I've heard there's so many male relationship coach influencers out there now on social media. And I've even heard some men say that are in this field, that are in the relationship influence field, say a man knows in literally like seconds whether he wants that woman to be his wife or not. Now, as a woman, we're wired a little bit differently. I can tell you within a number of seconds if I'm attracted to that person or there's a chance that I would like to maybe kiss them or be physically affectionate with them, or they're definitely like some safety issue. But as a man, do you think that's true? Like in a matter of seconds, you almost biologically, animalistically know she's for me or not.
I think that is true. And what's interesting, it's very fascinating that you say that because when I told Tina so quickly that I believed that I was falling in love with her, she is an unbelievable research geek. This woman is just, she will get right on and research and look into things. So she did. And she found that 48% know immediately on the first date. 48% fall in love at first sight. That's a huge number. She was unaware of that, and then she made me aware of that. And I didn't know. I just knew. And it's not something that you can pinpoint. It's just something that innately hits you where you just know. Referencing those two disastrous dates that I had gone on before I met Tina, I mean, I couldn't wait to ask for the check because I knew right away there will not only not be a second date, but there won't be a second phone call. And with her, it's different. And when I told my daughters, because they know me top to bottom, and I said, this is the one. And they both had the same reaction. They said, Dad, we believe you because we know you. We know that you're not prone to being somebody that goes out a lot and goes out with girls. And I'm not even a boys' night out kind of guy. I don't do that. He said, you're a serious guy. You know what you want. You were faithfully married to Mom for 21 years. So we get it. And we believe you. And, you just know. When you know, you know.
Mm.
And I've turned out to be correct, which I'm very happy with.
It's an amazing love story, and I love hearing it. I have a question. I just want to confirm something, and I think this is very pivotal. You said something that you knew that you wanted to be a husband with her because you wanted to lead. You were looking for your best friend. You wanted to be a protector. So when I think about that, is that something, and all men are different, so we can't lump them all and say, okay, this is what all men want. But I'm hearing something, and I want to make sure I heard you right, that it was very important for you to have this role, to know that you want to not just be a partner, but a husband.
Correct. It was funny because I know a lot of married men. Men have been married for many, many years, and they love their wives, and they like being married.
Mhm.
But there's a difference between liking and enjoying marriage and wanting to be a husband. To me, that's a different level because that means that I want to step into this role. I want to take my role, be that person that she needs. Not just that I want her to marry me, not just that I want her to be my wife, not that just she's beautiful and sexy and we're going to have fun and we're going to go here and we're going to go there and whatever. I want to be her husband. I want to be the person that she relies on. I want to be the person that she counts on, that protects her, fights for her. And that is what separates it. Also, too, Tina has just an unbelievable range of qualities, things that I love about her. That's not why I married her. I didn't marry her for the qualities. I married her for her. I didn't marry her because she was funny. I didn't marry her because she was beautiful. I didn't marry her because she was sexy. I didn't marry her because she was responsible. I married her because I loved the essence of who she was, which means if something were to happen, she were to get ill or she was no longer the beautiful woman that I fell in love with, that didn't matter. I loved her for that deeper.
And I think that's what keeps people together, because if they're cohabitating, marrying, whatever, partnering up, whatever word, companionship, whatever word you're using in this day and age, everybody, it really boils down to something deeper. You use the word deeper. You said the essence, the substance, whatever the word may be, because what will happen is if you're just being with someone for ulterior or, like you said, funny, that can go away. Is this
Sure.
person going to be there? Like you say in your vows sometimes, in sickness and in health. That's pretty old fashioned, but I believe some people still say that in their vows, in sickness and in health, and richer or poor. And when you say those vows, you should actually mean them, because anything can happen. You could lose everything. My grandfather used to say, never measure the man when his pockets are full, measure the man when his pockets are empty. Because it's
brilliant.
true. How is he going to act? Is he going to become angry? Is he going to come home in a bad mood? Is he going to still keep the household together, still have laughter, still say, you know what, we're going to make it through. We're going to be in this together. Is he going to pull up his britches and still take care of the family? Or is he going to feel sorry for himself and just go, oh, poor me? Same thing with a woman. How is she going to act when times get tough? Was she going to say, okay, what do I need to do? Do I need to get a second job? What do I need to do? And you work together as a team. Huge difference.
No,
Mhm.
it's very true. It's very easy. The marriage is easy when everything is flush, when the money's good and, the vacations are there and you're driving nice cars, you have plenty. To your point, what your grandfather said is so true. It's when the things crash. And then what do you do? That is, I've been around the block long enough to know. And that's what matters. And Tina is just this, she gives me what it is I crave, which is I love the idea of coming home. I think about her, how she's going to greet me at the door, the house, how warm it's going to be, what she's going to provide in terms of a home. And that motivates me to be the husband that I need to be and the husband that she needs.
I have to say, I love hearing this. So I've been a relationship researcher, done couples therapy, coaching, and psychology professor for over 20 years now, if you count everything. And from everything that we know and the way that I hear you talking about each other, you definitely have a stable and satisfying relationship. And I would bet that you'll be together for the long haul. You both have a sense, and I'll tell you exactly what it is. You have a sense of fondness and admiration for each other. You have a sense of friendship. You offer each other intimate safety in that I could see Tina being comfortable being vulnerable with you, and you from the get-go were even vulnerable with her. That vulnerability of saying, I think I'm falling in love with you. I mean, wow, a woman could have said, hey, I don't know about this. Yeah, there's lots of comedies about that too. Seinfeld type comedies of you don't want to share too early, but
Right.
you did. You took the chance and you were greeted with openness. You were greeted with acceptance and you offer support for each other. You're each other's biggest fans. And what you really said is that, yes, if you are lucky, you will see each other. We are of the nature to grow old. We are human. Are of the nature to get sick. And the only thing that's true in this life are death and taxes. We will die. And if you're lucky, you will be there with each other through the oldness, through the frailness, through the sickness, and the end. So what's left is that essence of that person. I lost my father last year. My parents were married 50 years.
Oh,
Before
sorry.
my father passed away of a very difficult cancer, very untreatable, rare cancer. And I have to say, through the end, the last months, the last weeks of his life, he was still him. He was still him underneath it all. He was like, Marina, get me a beer. I want a Stella Artois and I want oysters.
There you go.
I was like, this man's dying. And he was like, I need a beer and I need oysters.
So I remember my dad. I was sitting next to him. Both of my parents are deceased. I've mentioned that on this podcast a couple of times. And he said to me, Kathryn, can you go to In-N-Out and get me a double-double? I said, have you lost your mind? Like, you have a double. You can't even take down broth right now. But we were just laughing because that was so him. And that's the way. This is what I'm talking about. Still being able to have a sense of humor, still showing the love and compassion, even in really tough times. And that's what's important. And we thank you so much for coming on. And we love your love journey. And
Thank you.
And thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. In the end, I can tell you that I've watched Tina put together this amazing the badass arts. And there is every single bit of this is true and it's genuine, and her own self-practice, even before she named this and created it, is what drew me to her. And I'm so proud of what she's done. And I know that going forward, it's just going to be amazing. But I thank you for having me. You ladies have been very charming and engaging, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you.
Thank you. And I think that you are an example of a good power couple. Like, you will be successful together because you have these foundations, you have these building blocks, and you provide a sense of safety for each other, and you're willing to work on it. So I love seeing that. I think it's very inspirational.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We want to tie things together. And I think mostly what we've heard in this episode is really removing the check boxes, that when you're looking for someone, the person needs to respect your faith journey. If you're on those dating apps, which still millions of people are, read the bios. Don't just look at the picture and swipe right, swipe left. Actually take time to look at the bio, because the time they put into it means the time they may put into you as well. And you go back to the bad affirmations, the I ams, I am alive, I'm here, all those things. I am lovable. And manifesting it to get out of your brain and providing, I would say what we learned, peaceful. I've heard the word peace several times here, providing a peaceful home and having empathy. I think we said knowing you're lovable. He mentioned not just wanting to be a partner, but a husband. And the reason he wanted to be a husband is because you allowed him to lead, to be the protector, to have a home, to discuss family values, having, as Marina mentioned, the fondness and admiration. We're hearing this word safety again. In one of our episodes, a couple had mentioned that they make each other feel safe. That vulnerability, and ultimately supporting one another in your endeavors. And that's what brings us really to a close about the whole badass arts. And he supports you in this 100%.
100%. I have been a career woman for my whole life in different corporate situations, from mega huge biz companies to startups. And when we moved here to Texas, he was one who said, you got to build this. He was one who had and so I would say that we have a very modern marriage in that way. And that is, it's funny, he talks about leading. He doesn't tell you that he does the dishes and he cooks and he cleans.
That's as well.
It is. And so I guess what I'm just saying is that we have a very balanced, graded relationship, and he supports me 100%. And my goal is for this business to become so successful that I get to retire him.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that you said he does housework without having to be asked. That's a sense of leadership. This is his house. This isn't like a hotel. So yeah, take the role of, I'm going to keep my house beautiful too.
Absolutely. So, we support one another, and doesn't he have a beautiful voice?
Yes, he does. He has a very good speaking voice. Maybe he'll do his own podcast.
Right.
But no, that's wonderful. And that's the thing. I run into so many men that they'll say, no, I don't cook, I don't clean. And I got to say, it's a little bit of a turnoff, because I don't mind cooking and cleaning. I mean, Marina knows I make cakes, I cook, I can do it all. But the point is, like, I want to be able to have someone that can also do these things. We do them together. Maybe we're singing in the kitchen and we're washing the dishes or whatever it may be. I don't think there needs to be necessarily, or the woman just does this, the man just does this. Going back to what I'm saying, supporting one another, being the wife, being the husband, not just the companion, is kind of the theme that we're hearing here. And going sometimes out of your comfort zone it's not a bad thing. What you were doing before isn't working. So maybe trying something new might be the solution.
Absolutely. If there's one last thing I can say, because I did want to address the reason the company is called The Badass Arts. And it has to do with a book that I've written that's going to be published later this year. The book is called The Badass Art of Appreciation, Living Bigly with Sass and Soul. And I differentiate. We didn't talk about this at all, but I differentiate between appreciation and gratitude. They're not the same. Used synonymously to mean thanks, but they're energetically very different. Or I should say the difference is energetically enough that once you understand it, it changes your life. So I wrote the book. It's part of the journey. And when he read the book, he said, you didn't write a book, you created a movement. So that's why the company Badass Arts. That's where the badass comes into. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you guys.
There's gratitude practices. I do understand where appreciation can be more of like a feeling, but gratitude is an action, that it's like an act of actually doing that and telling somebody that they make you happy. So I'm not sure if that's the differentiation you make, but I know that gratitude is an active practice.
I think we need to do more of that.
I make appreciation my active practice, but I'm happy to share that with you guys another time. And I just really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you both for having me on.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to take a sip of my tea.
And I'll have another sip of my wine.
So keep sipping.
Keep loving.
And keep laughing.
Cheers for now. From your love liaisons.